and then we'll just go.
Right.
Well, good evening, Adrienne.
Hi.
It's so good to be in space with you. I just love um how we got connected.
Yeah.
It feels so appropriate that the conversation we're going to be having is about like liberated parenting.
Mhm.
And I guess also what it means that we're both really on this journey as part of liberating parenting to home slash unschool our children.
Mhm.
And that we have this background as educators, because I just think about like how our paths came to be. It just like for me, it feels like um I really do feel like ancestors set us on a certain path. I can't believe,
100%.
right?
100%.
Like, that Adrienne, that you and I, well, first, of course, we met directly through Trina,
Yeah.
Dilag, or is it Dilag? I think it's Dilag.
Yeah. Yeah. Dila.
Yeah. What's interesting, right? So I met Trina because Trina was working with Surrendered Healing.
Mhm.
And at the time, I was really, Surrendered Healing was among the different kind of spaces I was part of, in addition to just therapy after Amato died.
Yeah.
And Trina was kind of less of a facilitator, sometimes a facilitator, but in a lot of ways, kind of more assisting Adelina uh, Tansioko, who was really kind of holding space. And it was super interesting because I randomly got this message from Trina. I think Trina DM me on Instagram or maybe emailed me or something.
Mhm.
And she was like, okay, I hope this is okay and you don't feel uncomfortable about this. But I checked in with Adelina about this and she thinks I should totally reach out. And I just wanted to tell you that whenever you share in space, I get this energy. Like I feel like a motto is is present and wants to say something to you. And I really want to share that. And it was just, well, first, of course, it's just like, oh my gosh, like how wonderful that there's somebody in the world who can receive a message from him. And I mean,
Mhm.
what's been amazing actually is at least in the immediate aftermath after he passed, I got a lot of random messages like that. So there's that.
Wow.
And it was like it was just wow. But the message from Trina was really beautiful because she actually really had a message to share to me about just motherhood and being a motto's mom. And it was coming up, I think, on maybe the very first Mother's Day after he passed. And it just so happens that his birthday is also Mother's Day weekend. And
Mm.
it was just such a beautiful message of just love and affirmation. But, I think it was beautiful that was coming from Trina, who's another mama. And, it's not surprising that somehow, when we would reconnect again, right? Our reconnection came through, I guess she had seen or I had learned, I don't really know how it happened, but I think I had come to this, a knowing that she was on this journey too of home and unschooling. And then it was like, oh my God, I need to connect you with another Pinay mama who's on this journey, Adrienne. And then, of course, like that led us to meeting for the first time over
Mhm.
the summer. And I guess it was the first in-person meeting for y'all, right?
Yeah.
Which was
Her and
amazing
I have been
because,
in community for a while. We met at Pinaista
right.
virtually,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was like maybe 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like so many people, we were, you became close, you developed these relationships virtually. So it's like all
Mm-hmm.
of these things coming together at your
Yeah.
house, at a
Yeah, no.
mom's house, at
At
the
the
Amano
books.
house.
Exactly. It's so funny. And no, and then I think what was really like the other thing was thinking that like when you share that your aunts like actual tita
Yeah, my
was
mom's sister, my mom's younger sister.
I still can't get over that. Was actually my third grade teacher, my first Pinay teacher ever, who
Mhm.
also felt like a second mom, for me. Especially because my mom was a nurse, immigrant, always working. And I think there was something like when you are born in the US and when you encounter an adult who's your parents' age and who's
Mhm.
actually like US born too, it's like, oh my God, like maybe, there's this feeling like there's
Yeah.
a grown up out there who might understand you just a little bit
Yeah.
better, right?
Yes.
And I
Yes.
loved her. And, later on, I would, maintain a relationship with her over years and years and years, right? She would
Yeah.
be the person to bring me into the educator space through the PhilAm Educators Association of California, or FAAC. So anyway, I just feel like somehow ancestors were just like, okay, we're going to set this thing in motion and
Mm.
these two are going to meet. And even when I met you over the summer, like our kids just having this immediate connection, our
Yeah.
partners, like, wow,
Mhm.
like you can't force these kinds of connections, like
No,
the
it just
fact that they
just
felt so
was so
natural,
aligned. All of it
right?
was so aligned. Shout out to Auntie Mary, Mary Ewan.
Heck yeah,
Or you
love
did.
her. She's like, I
Sister.
mean, I just love that she like was so committed to continuing the relationship, and I really, really
Yeah.
am grateful to that. But yeah, I mean, we just can just vibe together, Adrienne. I mean, that's sort of my my like background, I guess, on kind of
Yeah.
our coming together.
Mhm.
Obviously you have a very formal biography also, if you want to just
Mhm.
share that, and then I could also share and we'll just vibe together and
Yeah.
see how
Yeah.
this goes.
Let's see how it goes because I think that really is the nature of all of it that we're doing, right? It's just like a bunch of like FAFO. We're just gonna like fuck around and find out, right? Like we're recording a podcast and this just being in conversation with each other and archiving it. So
Yeah.
I'm just so grateful that we are having this conversation. Um, and the ancestors and source just brought us and our families together.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll start with my bio. So I'm Adrienne Hidalgo Esguerra. I'm a mama first and foremost. I wear lots of hats like a lot of folks do. I'm a mama. I'm mothering 5 humans, ages 4 to 28, and the three eldest are our nephews, and I have two biological sons. Um, and the way that came to be, just a little brief background to that, because people are like, "Oh my gosh, 5 boys? How do you have 5 boys? How old are
Yeah.
you?" Like the math is not mathing.
That is
And they're
real.
right,
I
the math
remember
is
this
not
thinking the same
mathing.
thing. Yeah, yeah,
And yeah, so the eldest is 28, and those are my sister-in-law, my husband's sister.
yeah.
Those are her 3 boys, who we've raised as our own, and she passed away 10 years ago, 11 years this
Mm.
year, and throughout their childhood, she was in and out of incarceration, and then she passed. And what was kind of like informal caregiving and caretaking, for a parent who was in and out of incarceration became very formalized. And I think that happens a lot when folks pass, relationships and roles and titles kind of become more formalized. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened with us. Even though we were very much involved in their upbringing and their day-to-day lives, picking up to and from school and all of those things, doctor's appointments.
Mhm.
But in any case, that's my mothering, and then I have our two bio sons,
Mhm.
um, who are around your kids' age,
Yeah.
Z's age, and um, yeah, it's just lovely how they all were able to meet
Yeah.
and hit it off. But so that's my mothering part. I'm located here in San Francisco, so I'm on unceded Muwekma Ohlone land. I was born and raised here. Was born at UCSF. I worked at UCSF, and I just recently left that position to pursue liberation work full time. Um,
Congrats.
I know. Thank you, and to you too. Just like you following in your footsteps too of leaving the UC institution to pursue this liberation, this collective liberation work. I'm the eldest of three girls. I'm a daughter of Generation 1.5 immigrants. My parents were born in the Philippines. My mom was the last of the eight. My mom's one of eight, and
Mm,
my mom's one of nine. My dad's one of eight, and my auntie
mm.
Mary, she's the younger sister. So my mom was the last one who was born in the Philippines, and the rest were
Oh,
here. Um,
wow.
and they immigrated here. Um, both of them around the same age and same time, and they laid their roots here in San Francisco. My mom in Viz Valley, my dad in Fillmore, and then later on in the Sunset. So San
Mm,
Francisco folks, if you know
yeah.
the hoods. Um, and yeah, so we've just been like raising this blended family in a multi-generational home
Yeah.
for years now, for decades really. And I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but it's informed that the family life, the mothering has informed so much because it was like happening simultaneously while I was an education student. I went to San Francisco State, went there, got my teaching credential, liberal studies, master's, was a PEP teacher through there. And this is all happening simultaneously. So like, as I'm forming my motherhood roles, I'm also forming my pedagogy. I'm also forming my activism and my identity around those things. So that's really how this all kind of came together. And then lastly, the part that brought me into this next phase is that like I was working at UCSF in pediatrics. There's a public school located inside of the children's hospital, and in there, I'm teaching like TK to college student patients. And we always say in pediatrics, there's two patients. There's the patient themselves, the child or teen or tween, young adult, and their caregivers or their family, right? So as clinicians, as practitioners, as providers, we have to treat both. So I really, really became close with a lot of families and understood that so much of the child's experience has to do with how the parents are actively parenting. Like, and the people in the hospital, you are not having your best day. People are not at their best. So I began to see like the way that parents cope impact how kids cope, and a lot of this like generational trauma and healing bubbles up to the surface. So just seeing that like parents need caregivers, there's a lot there. They need a lot of support too to be able to repattern, um, and yeah, and make these differences generationally. So that's kind of me.
Yeah, no, yeah, no, thank you for that. And I mean, I'm almost feeling like I kind of want to ask you a question already.
Oh yeah.
Because it sounds like so a couple of things like so you took the on this path of educator, right? And then eventually kind of and are now full time in the work that you're doing with raising liberated kids or raising ancestors.
Mhm.
Just talk a little bit more about that specific piece of your life, how that started, why it started, how it kind of connects to your training as an educator or your work experiences or even just personal experiences. I'd just love to hear because I think it was really exciting for me. Um, to just to see it, to come up, to learn about it. I really love the idea of having a space with a Pinay who
Mhm.
really is committed to supporting parents in the work of addressing and healing from and developing strategies so that we stop or at least try to really heal from intergenerational trauma that comes from the experiences that we may have gotten from our parents. So and
Mhm.
just I so for me it was just like, oh my God, this is such an important space to hold for people because we there's no where else do we go,
Who's
right?
doing this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
who else?
Keep
Because,
talking
it's
about
not
this.
right, because it's not like we live like in communities, like maybe in the Philippines where folks are in barangay, or you've got,
Mhm.
extended family. And if they're not even extended family, you've got, friends or just people who share a cultural background. And maybe, I don't know. I don't know what it was like. Maybe there are ways that parents were somehow kind of, at least they literally spoke the same language, came from the same
Yeah,
cultural context. Don't know. But, I mean, my sense is like, based on what I know about, how family formation happens in the Philippines, that there's just an expanded network of people who do the work of care and mothering and parenting, right? So it isn't only just the immediate parents, but there's the
right.
titas and titos and all the other people. And we don't have that at all, right? We're in this
Yeah,
context of, immigrant
This-
parents, or
yeah,
1.5 immigrant parents, and, and then this society. So yeah, I'd love to hear your story and how you got there. And yeah.
yeah. I think so much of it, I think it's I think my narrative and talking about our story, other people see themselves in it too, because nobody's really talking about it. So like when we were raising the boys when they were younger, this was before I even birthed my two younger boys. They It was such a learning curve to be able to do that. Like for folks who are raising children that you did not birth, there is a certain level of trust that needs to happen, that needs to be established, so we can all like coexist, right, and respect and care for each other. And there's a lot of that just like happening, but it was like kind of like at a fast pace, like kind of at fast pace, like kind of survival mode. Like we're just gonna make sure everybody's needs are met. And I think that's like how my parenting has evolved over time. It was just kind of like, okay, there's parenting, you meet the basic needs, and then you level up a little bit more, and then you start like creating like, oh, good memories. You go on vacations, you go camping, and stuff like that, and then you level up another level, and this is all happening right, like as I'm maturing and getting older, and going to school and going to grad school and all of this, and moving my way through my career. Um, you just naturally kind of level up, or you learn, right? When you know better, you do better. And I was not always the greatest. There's been a lot of times where I've apologized for not being the greatest auntie, but we're learning, right? We're doing our best. And then so you level up, right? And then you're like, okay, now I'm trying to heal myself. Starts coming up, and like, okay, I got to heal the stuff that I'm doing with my partner's got to heal his stuff. And then you kind of go to this next level. It's like, okay, well, this role that I'm embodying here on earth, like I'm the vessel, I'm like this vehicle of between the past generations, right? Their mom, who's no longer with us, who's one of my strongest guiding ancestors in this work, right? Raising ancestors is really because of her. I always get like choked up when I talk about her, but and Trina, back to Trina, she got some important downloads also from my sister-in-law, Frances, about affirming like that the work that we're doing and how we're raising her children, it's the right thing, we're doing it the right way, and how she would want to do it. And that meant a lot to me, because like you never know, right? If you're raising these kids, like, oh, what is the metric, what's the gauge, are we doing a good job, is this how they would want us to do it? You don't really know. So that kind of reaffirmed a lot of things for me, and I appreciate her being able to receive those types of downloads. But I was realizing, like, we're this vessel where we can either like continue on just driving along the way that they've always done it, or we can steer the vehicle, the vessel, into a different direction. And I think stuff really went inward for like a lot of people was like during COVID, when everybody was inside, we had a chance to pause, because we have been operating as a society at as like a breakneck speed.
Yeah.
Go to school, you get your degree, you get your career, you work, have a
Hmm.
family, you buy things you can't afford, and then you
That's
figure out
right.
how to pay for it, and then like raise decent humans, and then like it's just like there's no pause, there's no
Yeah.
rest, there's no time to really reflect. And for a lot of folks, I think, myself included, there's a time of like going inward while simultaneously Black Lives Matter movement was happening. George Floyd was murdered. Everyone is like, what the hell's going on? We need to do something, but you're isolated and you want to, like you're grasping, you're reaching at straws. Where is my support? Who can I talk to? And then this world of Zoom and the internet and connecting with folks kind of opened up, and I started facilitating these anti-racist parenting groups through Agile, Asian American Justice Innovation Lab,
All
who's based
right.
down in LA.
Mm.
And I just started facilitating this, and people were like, "Oh, cool! Free workshops about anti-racist parenting through an Asian American lens." People hopped
Mm-hmm.
on. I'm like, "Cool, we got something here.
Yeah.
People want to talk about this,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, "Okay, how does this evolve a little bit more?" And then that's how Raising Ancestors came to be, and Raising Liberated Kids. So Raising Ancestors is the business, and then Raising Liberated Kids is the membership inside of that. And I just
Mm-hmm.
developed it as a way for families to, caregivers, but primarily it's the mamas, it's the mothers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to discount the partners and the co-parents, but the ones that have been connecting are the mothers,
Yeah.
um, who are looking for it. I created it because I was looking for who has this blended family, raising a whole gang of kids in a multi-generational
Mm-hmm.
home. We got stuff we trying to heal, we got to talk about, and we're like, where's our social justice outlet? Where is our critical lens through things? Like,
Yeah.
where are my people at? Where's my people at? So I
Yeah.
started talking about it, and people came, and that's where it kind of, evolved from.
I love that. That's amazing. And so, yeah, I mean, COVID, really this opportunity, it's it sounds weird to talk about COVID as an opportunity, but yet that was what it was, right? It
Hmm.
as tragic as it was, continues to be, it opened up other possibilities for sure. And you're right. I mean, with everybody staying at home, you were forced to like have to grapple with any, deep hurts that, distraction from like the
Hmm.
hustle
Yeah, we
to,
couldn't busy ourselves.
yeah, you just busy yourself, and then all of a sudden you're stuck at
Get
home and you just
distracted.
gotta, yes, you have to deal with it. And then um also the new roles, right, that we had to play, especially as parents. Like we were not just parents after school, which is not to say, but because that's a
Yeah.
reality, right? Like as soon as you get your kids in school, a, a big chunk of their time, the care and the knowledge transfer, is happening by a whole bunch of other people,
Yeah.
and not you. And then all of a sudden, you're having to take responsibility for that too.
Hmm.
And it sounds like part of what the dynamic is like recognizing that you're raising your children, being their teachers in this world that's kind of collapsing around us in so many ways, pandemic, racial injustices, and
Hmm.
needing to kind of create space for other parents, right? Finding people who are
Hmm.
aligned around these kinds of commitments around parenting. And
Yeah.
so tell me too just about like um your because it wasn't just about raising ancestors as a formation, but it was also some choices around home and unschooling, right? Like,
Yeah.
talk about that. Like, especially
Yeah.
given that you are, it's funny, right? I know you because I know that, your mom, your auntie was
Yeah.
my
As your
teacher who
teacher.
really
Yeah.
had a big influence in my wanting to become a teacher, right?
Me too.
And
My
you
mom.
too,
Yeah.
right? And your mom too, right? She was a teacher as
No,
well.
yeah. My mom's special education teacher, and
Mm-hmm.
so much of that's. I mean, it was like, okay, I'm going to either go into teaching or I'm going to go into nursing, and
Right.
it's not really cool with blood. So I'm like, okay, we're going to go,
The other route for
education. Yeah.
caring.
My sister's a nurse though, but my other sister, I have two younger sisters. One's a nurse, the other one's a kindergarten teacher. Um, So, but funny enough, like I ended up working as a teacher in a hospital, so it was like
Right. You
section.
combine the two.
But yeah, it was a choice. So, like raising ancestors started off. We were originally called after schooling better, and that's like where my mindset was. It was after schooling better. Like,
I
okay, understanding
see.
that what you were just saying, Robin, was like, yeah, we get our kids back at the end of the day, and we want to do that sacred time between when the bell rings and then they put
Yes.
their head on their pillow. We want to after school that time better, and
Right.
that was kind of like it was like, okay, school was a non-negotiable, right? Like we just had to figure out how to work around school and how to do that part more consciously. And
Mm-hmm.
then like pandemic was hitting. I'm like, okay, wait, we're doing it. We are school. We are
Mm-hmm.
family. We are school. We're everything. Um, and it became to evolve to like this deschooling, unschooling. We're not after schooling better. We're not like it's not centering school. We're decentering school.
Yeah.
And it evolved to raising ancestors, just seeing more that our role is so much more identified than how we spend those 8 hours a day. It's much
Mm-hmm.
more generational. It's not just like within the confines of school.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more to all of our identities and our learning environments because learning is everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was so hard to unlearn that part because I'm very schooled. I'm extremely schooled.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my mom, my aunties are
Mm-hmm.
educators. My families are, it's a family of educators. That was like my lineage was to be inside of a classroom and to release that idea that we're going to unschool now, we're going to deschool, we're going to unlearn these things and do another path around education was like, what the heck? What like it is necessary, but like how are we going to really do this? And I think it like because you're on a similar path too, right? Like you're very schooled in the institution of education and higher ed, and you're an unschooling family also. You've got your kiddo back there in his learning environment.
Yes, which is on the
Which is
floor, on the couch,
it's
sometimes outside on the
everywhere, and
patio. It's
it's
everywhere
beautiful, and it's
and nowhere.
everywhere.
Yeah, that's real. And you're right. I think um I am so schooled and the whole idea of not just homeschooling, but unschooling um has been a process. I'm not even sure exactly. Oh no, I do know. I mean, I think I'd always, similar this idea of after schooling better, right? So, of course, I have two children, although of course, I lost my Amato, my eldest, in the pandemic during in 2020. But I think always as a parent, I think a lot of my ideas about parenting were very deeply rooted in my identity as an activist and a community organizer. And, I think that when when somebody identifies this way, or maybe I could just speak for myself, I think identifying in this way, and this is not something that's necessarily always available to people, right? To identify as an activist or an organizer. These are not
Mhm.
things that are very common, I guess, in our society. In fact, there are ways that the terms activist and community organizer actually can be seen in a negative kind of light. I remember back in the day when Obama was running for president, and part of what was being lifted up about his biography that he was a community organizer, and I remember kind of the right really seizing on that and sort of
Mhm.
demonizing it in a strange way. And just how in general, right? It's one we take for granted that it's perfectly acceptable for a business person to be an elected official and or like even a
Mhm.
medical doctor or a
Yeah.
lawyer, but to think that a
Mhm.
community organizer might have a kind of socially valuable and kind of role is still something that's not true in our society, right? And I think I was just fortunate enough to be in a situation where I was in a college where ethnic studies was taught, and so I was introduced to very different understandings about activism and community organizing, and I was able to be mentored. So then I couldn't even take this identity for myself, right?
Yeah.
I think for a lot of parents out there, they may not necessarily identify as activist or community organizer, but I definitely feel like there are a lot of parents out there who, especially parents of color, who are committed um, to raising children uh, to be better human beings in a context that we know is not was not made for us, right? A capitalist, white supremacist, ableist, heteropatriarchal. As people of color, we recognize that this is not a system that we want to reproduce. A lot of us, right? A lot of us have that experience of like, no, it's not okay, and we don't want this for our children. And one of the big interventions for us might be just we want to be committed to being
Hmm.
the best parents we can, right? So, I mean, just again, for me, community organizing and activism, I think, has really shaped my parenting. And in some ways, some of my parenting is also a reaction against how a lot of activists
Yeah.
actually and community organizers have been when it comes to parents. There are cultures out there among kind of community organizers and activists where it's like, we got to show up to this action, we got to show up to this meeting, we got to do this, that, and the other. There's not a whole lot of space for people with children or for parents.
Yeah. Hmm.
I've been in spaces even where I've been made to feel as if, I needed to choose that,
Hmm.
and with mothers who made a different kind of choice, who went to those late night meetings, who went to those actions and left children behind. And the whole
Hmm.
idea was like, I'm doing it for them, I'm doing it for them. But also
Hmm.
me observing that I wasn't really certain whether the kids were feeling it, whether
Yeah.
this commitment. And I think I wanted to do it very differently where I could still show up and be as best a mom as I could be
Yeah.
while also advancing certain kinds of ideas and sharing different ways of thinking about the world. So that was always, the way I had functioned, as a mom with a motto. At the time, I don't even homeschooling was not even an option, right? That was not even on my radar. I
Yeah.
feel
If
like
you're
if there
working, you don't even consider that.
no, you know what I mean? Like God, if I had other tools at that time, I think it might have been different, especially because he was hearing impaired. And so that
Hmm.
was also a real struggle. How do you parent a child? You have these values and you have a child with a disability. How do you
Hmm.
provide them support?
Hmm.
But yeah, the homeschooling and unschooling journey really had to do with COVID, of course.
Yeah.
Um, I my son, my little one's first year in school was, he was in kindergarten and it was the pandemic. And it also happened to be literally he had to start school days after his brother had passed. So that was a whole other thing. But
Hmm. Yeah.
just I think dealing with there he is in the background, dealing with a teacher who I felt like wasn't fully empathetic about kind of what we were going through. I
Yeah.
think a teacher who was trying to insist on kind of the normal as opposed to really grappling with what was very abnormal, our existences at the time.
Yeah.
Um, even my own experience in the university, like feeling like there was just this push for business as usual. And
Yeah.
all of those things, right, were making
A
me feel like,
dissonance between that.
yes, real dissonance, and just feeling like these institutions, if I already knew that these institutions were imperfect sites for liberation, I think I came to a point where it was like, no, these are spaces that are really um, the sites for reproducing all
Yeah.
the
It's
things that,
counter.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Because, I think I still
Where we
was like,
say.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I think, continue to believe, right, that education is maybe one of the institutions for the unmaking of certain things. And I don't
Hmm.
know, after the pandemic and everything, it was just like I
Like,
don't
yes,
even know that,
and yeah.
right? Yes, and I think I've come to the point even where it's like, no. I think I'm not
Yeah.
even convinced anymore that schooling is a possibility. But anyway, we can have a whole other conversation
Oh
about that.
my
But
gosh, yeah. Harmful.
yeah, but long story short, for us, the at least the homeschooling, unschooling journey really happened in 2021. You know, after everybody was really pushing for the kids to go back to school in
Mhm.
spite of, high, COVID rates still. I think that just was it, for our family. My son, after all the work we were trying to do to be vigilant and to not contract COVID, we ended up getting COVID in the fall of 2021.
Mhm.
And that's when it was like, especially my husband was like, no, we're holding him out. Like, we are going to do this. You can do this. I can do this. We can do this. School was
Do
never
this.
good for me, because his
Mhm.
experience of schooling as a Hmong, person is very different. Poor Southeast Asian, from me as a Filipino, kind of middle class daughter of a nurse. But he was like, "Let's go! Like, this is we already know that there's another way possible. COVID showed us
Mhm.
this. Like, let's go!" And
Yeah.
that opened up a lot for us. But um the whole idea of unschooling, right, which is just it's radical. I mean, it's about saying like this schooling is very carceral. Schooling is rooted in this a kind of system of authority and
Mhm.
authoritarianism, really, that
Mhm.
is suppressing our children, and that we have to shift our entire understanding of how learning gets happens, who teacher or what the role of teacher is or not,
Yeah.
and where it happens and all of that. And so, I mean, we kind of just dove into it, and it's still a process. But it's a beautiful process. I feel like it's it's helped a lot in terms of my own healing from intergenerational trauma for sure, but also it's enlivened, I think, my own curiosity too.
Yeah. Because
Has
you gotta be
really
and creativity. You
you
gotta be
yeah,
creative.
totally, to be kind of an unschooling parent, because really unschooling, for folks who don't really know, is about really kind of centering the child's agency in many ways and
Yeah.
shaping the learning experience. And that is not easy. And that it's a lot of surrender. It's surrendering to
Surrender.
them as people with agency. It's surrendering, and letting go of a curriculum, letting
Mhm.
go of a very linear kind of curriculum,
Mhm.
because it can just shift, as interests shift, and it
Yeah.
means being more of a facilitator, but really active listener as a parent,
Yeah. Yeah.
and on all of that. So
And
yeah,
I'm
it's a
looking for success in that really, like, we have to recalibrate that.
Oh my God. Yeah. And it is hard, because let me tell you, we have had breakdowns because mama here cannot. It's like,
Well,
can we
as
just stick
people
to a
who
schedule?
like would award grades, right? Like,
Yes.
like, how do you undo that and then be in relationship with your child and recognize this adultism that's happening? That's just
Yes.
that we have
Yes.
to name and try to, see them as whole people.
Oh my God. Yes. And then even like the grade, right? Like grade, like, because,
Grades, reading levels.
right, all of that, right? That, because, part of our processes we're connected formally to a school. And we still have to comply on some level with the state standards, right?
Right.
And so we're kind of in this space of both, and we're there, and then we're also, not
Hmm.
there. And it's hard, because I do get nervous, right? I get nervous about like standards, meeting them or not
Yeah.
meeting them, and to constantly have to like remind myself that the standards are arbitrary at the end of the day, standards that were created by systems that don't have never been created for us. I have to remind myself daily, because we're
Hmm.
so accustomed to being subjected to them,
Yeah.
as students in this system, and then also enforcers of this system
Hmm.
as teachers, right? And then
Hmm.
now being an unschooling parent. But there are moments of just this beauty, in spite of how hard it can sometimes be, where I see just this sharpness in kind of how he moves in the world, that just affirm like, okay, like this is it. This is a liberated or a
Yeah.
child in the process of liberation.
Yeah.
This is the breaking of intergenerational trauma. This
Hmm.
is the beginning of something different. And
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. And the beginning of something different. And you don't even know what you're looking for necessarily. And I think it's that fear of the unknown, it's that uncertainty of what, like, you might get started on it, but like, oh, but is this right? Do we keep on going? Like, is this what it's supposed to be like? Like, there's no instruction manual. And even if there
yeah,
were, the way it would be interpreted by each family and each kid is
yeah,
completely different.
yeah,
So then I guess the question is like, well, then how do we go about raising liberated kids? Right?
yeah.
Like, there's the schooling, the unschooling part, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
there's like this, like their identity and this like self-directed learning
Mm-hmm.
aspect of things. And then, like, is it like, well, what's the end game? What's the goal? Are we seeking higher education for them? Are we seeking gainful employment? Are we what are what are the outcomes that we're
Yes.
that is going to be like, okay, we did it. We raised a liberated kid. We,
Right.
we
What's the measure? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
what's the
yeah.
measure?
And then, or how do we just let go of that entirely? Right.
Yeah.
And is the measure simply that they are happy, healthy, whole, that they're
Hmm.
curious, that they're kind, right?
And they ain't going to
And
therapy talking about us.
yeah, hopefully
Hopefully.
that there you go. If that's the singular outcome, then they don't need to go. But
I don't know, maybe. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, and
We're building
especially
the plane as we fly it.
exactly, which is scary, right? Because it's like a plane that can crash.
It's high stakes. This is a high
It
stakes
is. It's
game.
it's high stakes, and I think that's why I really appreciate, the space that you're building, so that there's community for folks because, at the very least, if there is no playbook, if there is, no real template, at the very least, community, where we
Mhm.
can be in space together to hold each other at if it's just even just that. And
Yeah.
even I think for our kids, right, to know, um, that they're part of a extended community too,
Mhm.
of children, whose parents are trying to do things different. Because I think it's also a challenge for them, especially
Yeah.
if, you know, I mean, I think it's just a challenge for them, period. Whether, for example, they're still in a traditional school system and parents are trying to do after schooling better, or like in my son's case, home slash unschooling. Um, that means that your growing up is a very different existence, not the norm.
Yeah.
Um, which I can imagine for them, but potentially also feels a little bit isolating,
Mhm.
or maybe they don't process it yet when they're younger. I should have a conversation with my son about how it feels, or what it looks like to kind of talk with kids who are still in school, or just
Mhm.
you know what it means to experience this kind of a growing up. But you
Yeah.
know at least we know that we can even facilitate connections between our children as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, and they'll feel safe enough to be real with us about it. Like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, mama, I have some FOMO about what's happening. Um,
Mhm.
I want to go back, and giving them the agency to choose, like, okay, I'm getting older, maybe they want to go be enrolled in as they get older.
And is that how it was for you? Because were you kind of homeschooling both of your kids or your eldest, and then
Yeah,
did they
yeah.
decide to go back, or did you kind of
Well,
have conversations with them?
we've definitely been having conversations. Right now, they're both, my eldest 10-year-old is in traditional school, right? And then the youngest just started like a preschool type program just this year.
Mhm.
And there's been conversation. So he chose, he wanted to fit, the option was there, if you want to homeschool, unschool with me, or if you want to continue on. He chose to continue on. I think a lot of it had to do with the completion. He's with his homies at a school, fifth grade, want to see that out. And so now the choice
Yeah.
becomes, like at this juncture, like school applications are coming up, right? We're applying.
Mhm.
And I think there's like a lot of real fears coming up for me as
Mhm.
a parent of like, okay, yeah, we'll apply for middle school for the local middle schools here. I feel some type of way. I feel a lot of types of ways about them. Um, and if he really wants to go there, um, and just talking like, so we'll apply and then it's going to be like a game time decision. Are we going to do it? You know, where did you get accepted? Where did you
Mhm.
go to that
Mhm.
school? Or you're going to stay with me, because I left my career position so I can be more present here, for
Yeah.
him, for building building all of this. And
Yeah.
but there's some real fears coming up with me, like, okay,
Mhm.
as a sixth grader, right,
Mhm.
preteen, who I know socially, I know child developmental wise, they want to be in community with with peers their age, and unless there's a place for them to go with other unschooling families and kids who are also doing it around his age,
Yeah.
is this helpful or is this harmful? Is
Mhm.
this, am I doing the right thing? As the person who's steering the ship, um, while giving them agency to choose what they want to do. But there's a lot of things that for me it's creeping up, and I need to to talk through. Um, with them, because like I think when they're younger, when you have younger kids and you're entering you're maybe younger school age kids, like entering, I'm
Yeah.
talking 4 or 5 years old,
Yeah.
and you're like, okay, maybe we're going to go to preschool. No, we can forego preschool, we can do it here. Oh, okay, it's kindergarten time, 5 years old, maybe we'll go to kindergarten. Oh no, maybe we could push it off a little bit longer. But I think like as they get older and older, there's the social aspects, there's a lot of different things that you're coming up against, and you're like, or they have their friend groups already established, which is really important. We know that, right? And um, like what are we going to? How do we address this, right? How do we um, provide something that's really comprehensive? So
Yeah.
we're in the process of building like this unschooling place, like an in-person location, for our families, and really trying to gauge interest. Like, are people down to buy in? Like, are you, it's going to be, I feel like it's Law and Order's like, it's an elite squad of people who want to like, it's a lifestyle. It's not just like a
Yeah.
schooling choice. It's
No,
not
I
just like,
know.
are you going to apply for the public school or the private school or the parochial school? It's not that. It's
Mhm.
like, are we divesting?
Yeah. And I hear you for sure, because of course, part of what accompanied our homeschooling, unschooling journey was that we also decided to make this radical shift of living in a closer relationship to the land, right? So that then meant that where we were living, which would have put us into connection at least with more people, and certainly more people of color, where our son could connect with those sorts of people, or just other, kids similar to him in terms of ethnic, racial background.
Mhm.
Now we're in a completely rural setting, where less people and with demographics that didn't match or are not the same as where we were before, which was more majority people of color and now less so. But, a lot of our shifting and framing too, though, with our lifestyle is just also recognizing that, we're putting him also on a very different path in terms of relating not just to people, but to other living things and living beings. And so this is where it's definitely been tough
Time.
for us as a
Yeah.
like a talk about building a plane while you're flying it. And we don't have a lot of other models. We're just kind of carving out this thing, and like praying ancestors are just there to catch us.
Yeah.
Because it's such an
In the right
experiment.
direction. Yeah.
Yeah, and, I think one of the things that's been helpful for sure, especially around the social piece, I mean, of course, with my son, he started a virtual school already, so maybe that prepared the pathway, in terms of being able to, shift into this kind of existence when it comes to the learning experiences outside of a formal setting, and then also social, experiences not delimited to. the school setting, right? So maybe that kind of helped. I mean, he did have that brief, like maybe 4 months of being in an actual formal school setting, which interestingly wasn't always positive, right? He was already experiencing bullying. Already, we could see experiencing dynamics with a teacher who,
Hmm.
you know, anyway, with just, when you have a child who has certain kinds of personality characteristics that can be labeled, interpreted bad, just, even if it can be also construed as good, right? So,
Hmm.
yes, I think one of the things that have been helping for me in terms of just, especially the social aspect, I think that's the biggest piece is like, are they connecting, with other children their age? So I've gone through a lot of struggle around that. I mean, so on one hand, I think that part of, you know, the reframing around that the relationship isn't just with people, that part of his relationship that he's cultivating is a deeper relationship with lots of forms of life, which I love. I love that we together as a family are doing that. I think one of the things I think has been helpful, my reframing, and I got this, I don't know from who, but I've definitely been reading a lot of Black unschooling mamas. They are really just at the forefront of thinking about this work and doing this work, but and I can't recall who it was, but I think it was a mama who basically was saying, part of the problem with schooling too is that children's school peer groups are limited to just who they happen to have access to in a grade, as
Hmm.
if and the possibilities for other kinds of friendships with children below or above are really, it's not possible. It's almost even frowned upon. And that one of the things that unschooling does is it gives children the opportunity to make friends with a whole set of people that don't necessarily have to just be their physical age, but can
Right.
be, and I love that. And I see that, I think if I was concerned about, oh, this kid's not going to be able to be connecting enough with children his age, he is connecting with people all the time through the work we do
Right.
here. And that he's so free. Like, I mean, it seems so basic, but like one of the things, Z can do, like I remember when I was a little kid, I could never talk to grown-ups. I always just freeze, or
Mm.
certainly not strangers. Like if my mama and dad said, go buy yourself, here's some money, go buy yourself something, pay for it, and then just get the change. I could never do that as a little kid, certainly not his age. I mean, he just can go up, chop it up with the cashier, get, and because there's,
I should
you
have
know,
walked right up to my car. It's
yeah,
like, I'm
you're
like,
like, "Hey, what's up?" And just that is amazing. But, for sure there's, and we're trying to we have to be actively or proactive about creating other peer experiences. But, I think that's been helpful. All the reframes that I'm getting either creating on my own to some extent, also getting from other mamas. And I think that's the key thing there though, is like, it's great now as there's so many resources too,
yeah.
as women, which I think I'm just so grateful that women who are willing to share their stories
Hmm.
and dive deep around the vulnerabilities around their stories so that we can, find anchors out there.
Yeah, because I think it's just that. It's just like as we transition, it's just like a series of reframes. It's a series,
Yeah.
like how do you reframe, right? Like you read, you learn, you consume more knowledge, and you're also in community. You're talking about it,
Yeah.
you're speaking it aloud, right? You're listening to other people's conversations. How do they handle these situations, right? Oh, is that the same way that I would have done it? Oh, I like the way that you did that, right? It's like a lot of it's just like a series of reframes because you could have maybe you have an endpoint of how you want things to look, but I think a big part of this unschooling process is that it's like you're allowed to change your mind.
Yeah.
You're allowed to have a plan and be like, well, that's not how my plan was going to go, so I'm just going to go back to the drawing board and be able to be okay with that, because I think for a lot of people it's like that kind of risk taking and like failing forward, um, and like progress over perfection, however you want to, say it, um, is a lot of us were so scared of that.
Yeah.
Like, like for real, like
Yeah.
we are. Like what, and then you think like, well, what is the actual consequence of this?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, what is the actual consequence if we take a risk and we do something differently and it doesn't work out? What, what's going to happen? You know,
Right.
and usually I think we think worst case scenario, and that's just like human nature. But once you get into community, you talk about people, because I see like raising liberated kids as like a lab. It's like it's
Yeah.
just a lab. You go and experiment, you mess around, and you see what happens, and you report your findings, you collect
Yeah.
the data, you analyze
Yeah.
it, and you're like, okay, we're gonna tweak it, or
Mhm.
you know what I mean? And just being able to practice doing this, living this life. Because by no means, like, is there expert mode in like decolonizing your mind, or, divesting from oppressive systems. Like, there's not a guru,
Yeah.
there's
No.
models and folks who have shared, like you said, like have shared vulnerably their experiences. And, it behooves us to like to listen and learn.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's been great to at least, be in connection with people like you and others and, to be able to share resources because it is scary. It is scary to, um, it's funny. Like, I mean, I think a lot of us can theoretically, we know that these systems require deep dismantlement. And yet I think what that actually requires is still a very scary thought, like even with that, like what is the outcome for our children? And I definitely go back and forth between God, am I just not providing him with enough of the skills or whatever he needs to survive in the world? And
Right.
then I have to think to myself again, wait, but the world that we have is not a world I actually want him to be part of
Right.
reproducing. And I again, it's I have to kind of remind myself that, um that's the case. And so therefore, the metrics for success are definitely going to be different. But, again, it's hard. It's hard because, we still live in this world.
Yeah, and it's
And
I mean, you're like kind of like straddling
mhm,
different
it's
worlds,
a
because
both and.
it's both and we're not, and I think like another reframe is like we're not trying to teach them or model the skills that they need to thrive in this world.
Yeah,
Teach them and model the skills that they need to build a new one.
exactly.
And what are those skills? We're figuring that out. We're finding that out,
Yeah.
right? And I think a
Yeah.
lot of it has to do with the ability to dream, to imagine, to
Yeah.
experiment, to be creative,
Yeah.
right? To care about what other people think, but not that much.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and just
Yeah,
being
or at least to create communities where there can be affirmation that isn't, you know, because
yeah,
the affirmation, we need that still,
you need
but
that.
just getting the affirmation from the right kinds of sources.
Right, right, right. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
keep on going. Like whatever the path it is you're going on, keep on going on that path. So
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I've just been so grateful that we've been connected like this, with other mamas, because definitely I feel like this is a year that of the Pinay mama for me. It's funny. Because I think when I started my healing journey after I lost the motto, um, and it was interesting because part of my healing journey was also having to grapple with unresolved issues with my own mother, you know?
mm,
And unfortunately, I lost my mom last year. And so I lose the opportunity to continue that healing journey with her.
mhm,
Um, but as I was going through that process, I just felt really compelled to want to really create space and be in space with other Pinay mamas specifically. And I'm just so grateful, that so it was just like this burning desire. Didn't really know how it was gonna ever manifest, but love that we all got together and we were connected and that we can begin this year in this way. So and of course we're talking and continue to build together, build community. as mamas in this way. And, another thing that actually is funny that I think you said something about just not being able to rest and all that.
Yeah.
Just a space that we're also trying to cultivate and working also with Jamie Cardenas of Magpie Alchemy to really hold space, collective space for Pinay mamas, even just to rest, just to rest,
Yeah.
just to even take, and this sounds maybe kind of crazy, but we're very much inspired by the nap ministry. But
Yeah.
seriously, being able to be in space where we can all nap together,
Mhm.
um, and process the things that come to us in our dreams when we're in
Yeah.
deep rest. But I love that we're, that us is that there's this energy pulling all of us Pinay mamas together. I'm actually finally also I wanted to share with you if you haven't read it yet. I definitely want to do book club. I've always been wanting to do like book club on our farm. I think I'm just going to do it. But I've been reading Essential Labor.
Yes.
I don't know if you had a chance
Same.
to read this.
Yes. Angela Garbus.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, yes.
Can
I'm
we?
like underlining everything. We can have a whole other conversation about the book.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. I've been wanting to do the same thing too. That one, and then also Akila S. Richards, Raising Liberated People.
Yes. Okay. So it was Akila Richards. I
Yeah,
think it was
Akila
Akila
Richards.
Richards who may be where I picked up on these ideas around like, that basically the message for me was don't trip. It's okay if he's not always
Mhm.
around people who are eight like him,
Yeah. Yeah.
because that is not as relevant as just being able to form friendships and relationships with people.
Hmm.
And then I
Yeah.
would add my own twist is also have a relationship, especially now in the context of just, you know, planetary degradation, a relationship too with
Yeah.
just all life forms in a
Yes.
really
'Cause
meaningful and intimate way.
it's all interconnected, right? Like the
Hmm.
liberation of our relationship with our kids and our kids to be liberated is tied to the ability for our planet and um, other folks who are oppressed to be liberated. Like all of our liberations are tied, and
Hmm.
creating the spaces for all of this to happen is like it's so important. And then the leaning to be able to keep doing this kind of like visionary type of work, we have to rest. We have to engage in like restorative rest. We have to engage in just slowing down, like the slow living, uh,
Yeah.
and kind of yeah, and being okay with not having like a super busy schedule all the time. Although I know like it's in while at the same time it's important that you make these connections and you hold space for these things, but also holding space for not doing anything so you
Yeah,
can
that is
process
hard.
all of this information, right? Because it's so ingrained. It's like, okay, I'm not doing anything. It's like idle hands, and
Yeah.
there's a discomfort with.
Yeah, lots of discomfort, especially because, a lot of how we're socialized as women, right, is
Mhm.
um, to be at work because work means that you I mean, in a lot of ways, our laboring is our expression of love. And it's almost as if when we're not laboring, that somehow that's a lack of love, right? And having to kind of heal from those kinds of notions that we internalize, for ourselves. I mean, there's a whole set of conversations to be had
Oh
about
yeah.
that, right? But I mean, tell me though, Adrienne, like, what are you visioning for this year? Because it seems like you obviously just ended the year with like this huge amount. And so that it means I'm guessing, and that you're setting yourself up for some huge transitions and changes. So, what are you visioning for yourself for this year?
I mean, so much. I think I'm envisioning capacity. I'm more capacity for myself, in all the forms, right? Personally, for my family, for the communities. Um, but I mean, I think a lot of it is to build these spaces. Like I'm really being called to build and hold and curate spaces for these parents, these mothers who are trying to do decolonize their parenting, and like really talk about like, well, what does that actually mean? Like it sounds like it's kind of like, oh, it's like a sexy term, like, but what does that mean like in practice?
Yeah,
Like, how do we do
yeah,
that? And then how do we, have the language? And then also, how do we have the space to practice it and come back and talk about it and apply and then move forward, and just the different iterations of how that comes. So I think that's like a lifelong practice, but I see a lot of that happening this year via Raising Liberated Kids and the different, workshops and spaces. And I know that like our spaces are going to overlap, combine. There's like so much there, alignment there. And also like we're continuing to work on like opening up this unschooling space. So my other favorite Akila is Karima Akila of Genii community, who's been visioning this also, like opening up these
Mhm.
unschooling spaces of where, families can do this, right? It's not just the kids, but it's the families, right?
Yeah,
And to make it a little bit more accessible, so if families are working, because I feel like it's such a privilege. I just want to like name the privilege of being able to be at home with a kid or kids to consider even unschooling, right? In home, in the house, because a lot of people don't have that
that's right.
privilege to do that. And people have to work, but they're like, okay, but I want to do that too, but I also have to work outside of the home. How do I do that? And a lot of it is being able to provide that set of values and a location, like an in-person drop-off location for
Yeah.
families who are aligned with that, but need to continue to work, but can drop off your kids somewhere to be with other kids whose parents are of the same, value system, and the kids are being raised in that value system too. And so that's also what I'm envisioning for 2024. However, that takes, to kickstart any venture, it's a lot. It's a lot of, where, how do you find your people? How do you find your spaces? How do you find the monies? How do you find, the funding and things like that? And I know it all exists and it's all out there, um, but it's a lot of navigating that. So, but the vision is there. It's gonna happen. It's already done. It just we just need to make it happen. But I'm positive that like the the answers to our biggest questions and the resources to our biggest needs is in this community,
Yeah.
um, and we just need to tap into it.
Yeah, I'm so excited about it. I mean, of course, it becomes a little challenging for us to be able to access some of those collective spaces, but
Yeah.
definitely hoping to even host some of those collective
Yes, and
spaces
yeah,
of
to go up
like,
there, be on the
yeah, especially
phone.
for folks who are, trying to cultivate that as part of their liberated parenting praxis or part of their, work as families to decolonize, to just help facilitate a closer relationship to the land, especially now, as we continue to see this violence unfold on the Palestinian people. We see the violence of settler colonialism. And, the truth is, we are also settler. The United States is a settler colonial country, and
Mhm.
we have been recruited into a settler colonial way of being, living, thinking. And I think a lot of the work of unsettling and being in deep solidarity with indigenous peoples and really towards the regeneration of life and the planet really does require remaking our relationship with the land.
Yeah.
And we run the risk of, I mean, not even just run the risk, but there are very many ways that we're already complicit in, if not the kind of the kind of violence that is happening um, in Palestine, but it's still a violence that has led to the genocide and disappearance of indigenous people and so much loss of life.
Mhm.
And sometimes it comes not at um with on because through bombing and guns, but even just you know living a hyper consumerist really thoughtful extractive lifestyle in
Yeah.
America.
Hmm. Which is not just like the norm, but what we strive for.
Yeah, that becomes
It's
our measure of
just
the
the goal.
success is doing that really well.
Yeah, exactly, and fast.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, yeah, there's so much there because that's really like what's driving so much of the violence, violence against others and the genocide, violence against the land and the animals, the planetary violence. Like it's this consumerism, this capitalism
Mhm.
that is pushing all of this. And I think once we slow down enough and figure like, okay, and start asking these big questions and start approaching answers and trying to really act on it in meaningful ways, by changing our behaviors, not just our beliefs and talking about it, but actually changing behaviors, our behaviors as the adults, but and then teaching the next generation that there's just like a whole other different set of behaviors,
Yeah. That's
uh,
right.
uh, to embody.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
it's been such a great it's been so good talking to you, and also just mindful that, we both have children because
I know, right?
it's like 8 p.m. We're doing this past 8 because
I
this is
know.
the only time that we can carve out. But
We
I
make it
can't
happen.
wait. Yeah, I can't wait for us. I mean, we're making it happen. And we were like, yes to just showing up because showing up is just that's important. And we're just
Like
gonna go
now,
with the flow, come with the energy we have, and just go because it's not about perfection.
it is not about perfection at all. Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, I can't wait till like we connect again. And there's so many things that we like are trying to do together. So we have to we have to
we
just
we have to
reconnect.
connect.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
It's like
mean,
there's no question about it. 2024, I see so much of like our work being together. So
absolutely.
yeah, just
Absolutely.
manifesting it because it's gonna happen.
Yeah, no, and I have to like really I want to be more active in the space with the raising liberated kids because I know I need I need that community right now because this is hard.
I know, I know. We're here. We're all here. We're all here.
Yeah,
We're all here
yeah.
for each other. But I'm so glad we're able to do this, Robin. I'm so
Me
grateful
too.
for the sisterhood in motherhood, to and just to talk about all of this stuff.
Yeah, me
This is how
too.
we noodle.
Me too. I mean, I'm not gonna stop the recording because I'm just gonna let it keep going. But seriously, like I feel like it's just I just feel so grateful that our paths were lining up and it does feel very, you know, um, it does feel like deep, that there is source, spirit, ancestors have like, because they just don't feel like these are coincidences, like at all. Like the
Yeah.
meeting with Trina and um than you and that it had this other connection, to like Mrs. Ewan.
Familial connections, yes. Yeah. It's meant to be.
Yeah, for real. But yeah, so what are you thinking? So are you relaunching RKL soon or how's it going right
Yes,
now?
yes. So we're relaunching now in January,
Yeah.
and it's just like kind of this is like the third iteration of it. So
Yeah.
really taking what folks have been saying over the past couple of years and meeting the need. Like, what is the service that needs to be provided? Like, how can I curate the space? Because I'm not
Yeah.
I'm just like a space curator, right?
Right, 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 right.
Um, and like I have some lived experience and stuff like that, but it's really just opening up the space. So we're relaunching here in January. Come join. And yeah, and we're going to continue. We're going to be going through this decolonized parenting framework throughout the entire year, uh,
Yeah.
of just like lather, rinse, repeat, kind of like here's the same
Yeah.
fun going through it and keep going
Yeah.
deeper, uh,
Yeah.
and just keep practicing.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I was gonna say, yeah, no, I'm excited and I definitely feel like, just being a part of a space where, that is held with that specific kind of like frame, is really helpful because I definitely feel like, like even just this, as much as like the new year was like, yay, new year, like I definitely came to 2024 with hella anxiety, like,
Oh yeah.
just a lot,
And
I don't
exhausted. I
know.
was exhausted entering into 2024.
Yeah, same. And,
It's been
I think,
heavy since October.
yeah,
Everything, I think
I
it's taking a
know.
toll.
It is. And then I don't know, I just had multiple freak out sessions with the family just in the last like not even week.
Mm,
Like I feel like I'm capable of losing my temper, but it doesn't often get lost. And I just feel like
mm,
I've kind of lost it more often than I would like. And I think it is so rooted in just, I don't know, fear and anxiety. On around lots of things, and I think definitely it's a constant battle against the fear and anxiety around this path we took as parents. And it's like I don't know why. I mean, I do know why my fear and anxiety gets manifested in anger when the feeling isn't really anger. It's just like a kind of frustration, just a feeling like you're just in free fall and it's really scary.
mhm.
So that's definitely been something I've been struggling with. I have to keep reminding myself, that like we don't care about the metrics. You don't care about the metrics. None of that matters. And yet it still finds its way. Like I was freaking out about, is he supposed to know his times tables already? And damn, we're not there yet. And shit, what did I do? And you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And then like,
Why?
why don't you know? And oh, what?
Like I'm a teacher. You should,
I
like,
know.
I'm supposed to be good at this.
Oh, so it's tough. But I'm just glad to be on the journey with other sisters who can just be real about it.
Girl.
Yeah. So he's like standing up to be like, yeah, she been yelling at me.
Yeah. Does
Stood up. He stood up. He was like,
he?
she been yelling at me. Let me tell you about it. But no, I can't wait. And we still have to like find a, I really would love to get the kids together because I just loved how they just all loved each other so quick. So
Yes,
can we
yes,
do a field trip one of these days? Like
yes.
really
Well, we're gonna hit
get
up.
that in the books.
We having retreats up there. We're gonna be
Yeah.
bringing
Yeah,
the
for real. Like, I
yeah.
mean, think what,
Everybody
let me
and their
know.
mama. That's who's
What's
gonna.
up?
Everybody and their mama is gonna be.
Yeah, yeah. I think it'd be fun if it was like, yeah. Yeah, it would have to be a whole family because like, not that we have to be divided by gender, but I feel like the men's can do their own thing, but actually be cool if the daddies had their own kind of process of like processing parenting. We have our process as mamas,
That's.
and then
I
the
wanna.
kids kind of having their own actually autonomous space that's still kind of at least, contained so they don't hurt themselves. But I think it might be kind of interesting to actually kind of have
Yeah.
space like that.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I've been thinking about that too. I want to get.
Yeah, because men need support too.
Yeah.
Like they,
Parents. 100%. They do.
yeah,
They all do.
they really do. But it's just being able to be okay with them being more active in actively curating the space or participating. I think it's just, it's different for them, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. But thank you again. I
Yeah.
know we've had a long ass conversation, but I will send you the recording. Do what you like with it.
Yes.
I'll do the audio part.
Yes. And we'll share it to the
Yeah.
community.
So how did you want to do it actually, by the way? Did you want to like do like an event in the future where we just kind of screen it like live and like whatever unfiltered raw and then have like a collective space for conversation? Or how are you thinking about doing it? Because I'll
Oh,
probably just do the podcast part at some time, but
yeah. We could screen this recording.
yeah,
Um
cool. I have no
and
shame.
yeah. And I mean this is it's about being real, right? Like and then share a community and they could tune in, share their Q&As ahead of time or stay on.
Oh, okay, so that could be Oh, so you're saying that we just share it out. Uh, would
No,
it be that we just share it out and
no,
then people can kind of sign in at another time to just do a Q&A? Or
could be.
like, would it be that we screen share it and at that same session do Q&A? Because I actually like that idea of like it's out in the world and you can watch it
Yeah.
on your own time. And by the way, on
And,
February
and this day,
5,
we're going
we,
to talk about
we're
it.
gonna actually talk about it. That's kind of cool.
Because I don't know if I could watch myself for an hour and a half talk.
Hell no. Are you kidding me?
I can barely listen to myself on a
Oh
voicemail.
my God. I know. Let's do it. You want to just do
Okay.
it that way?
Yeah, yeah. We
Oh,
could,
they could just watch till the very end
yeah,
as we're
yeah.
processing the process. Yeah, I think it's dope. And then we could just upload it. Do you have a YouTube channel?
I can.
Okay, maybe this is the time to start.
Yeah, I got to put all my I have a like a membership portal, so I've been putting all the recordings and stuff for things.
Do you want to put it to the membership portal? Do you want to do it public or both? Because
No, it can be both.
Okay.
I think yeah, I think people should watch this or have the opportunity if they choose to.
Yeah.
It's I swear if anybody is watching this all the way to this end of it, it's like you're a real one.
I know you're hella real
You're a
because
real.
I'm not even gonna edit. I
You're like,
think it's just gonna be like, you know what? Let's
right.
go.
If we're not
It's an
already,
hour all the way to this end. Even the part where I said I was not gonna stop recording, but I will just edit it out. It's not gonna
you're like,
go.
why did she stop recording?
Anyway. Okay, well, so have a good rest of your night. Hello to the family, hugs to everybody, and let's try to get together again.
Yes, we will. Yes, this
Y'all
season.
have to come when we do spring planting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be
What month
fun.
do you do that?
Huh?
What month are you going to do that?
March. Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll let you know because we're still trying to figure out things, but we definitely have monthly events planned.
Okay.
And also just trying to figure out other smaller scale events in between. But yeah, spring planting will be fun.
Ooh, okay. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care. It was so fun.
Good.
Can't wait to connect with you again.
Yes. Same.
Okay. Take care.
You.
Bye.